Dempsey. Story time with Ronnie. How you doing, guys? We got Around the World in 80 Days, Part 3 for us. And today's drive. Well, the driving part is we's rolling up I-17 North, heading up into Flagstaff, where we'll try to get on a I-40 going west, and we got to do a little detour and all that stuff. But for this part of it, for the most part of it, we're going to be rolling up the interstate here. And the other part is when one morning we woke up at Wind Campground and it was about 4 or 5 inches of snow underground. Okay, so now this story, Around the World in 80 Days. We got where we had left off. They had just about to complete the making the wager. The wager to Phileas Fogg says he can definitely, no problem, get around the world in 80 days, no matter what kind of trouble happens. No problem, 80 days. All right. The other guy says, "Baloney, you can't do it. No way, no way." So here we go. Heaven preserve me. But I would wager 4,000 pounds that such a journey made under these conditions is impossible. Quite possible, on the contrary, returned Mr. Fogg. Wow. Make it then. The journey round the world in 80 days? Yes. I should like nothing better. When? At once. Only, I warn you that I shall do it at your expense. It's absurd, cried Stuart, who was beginning to be annoyed at the persistency of his friend. Come, let's go on with the game. Deal over again, then, said Phileas Fogg. There's a false deal. Stuart took up the pack with a feverish hand, then suddenly put them down again. Well, Mr. Fogg, said he, it shall be so. I will wager the 4,000 on it. Calm yourself, my dear Stuart, said Valentine. It's only a joke. When I say I'll wager, returned Stuart, I mean it. All right, said Mr. Fogg, and, turning to the others, he continued. I have a deposit of 20,000 at Barron's, which I will willingly risk upon it. 20,000 pounds, cried Sullivan. 20,000 pounds, which you would lose by a single accidental delay? The unforeseen, wow. The unforeseen, and I can't even make that other word. The unforeseen does not exist, quietly replied Mr. Phileas Fogg. But, Mr. Fogg, 80 days are only the estimate of the least possible time in which the journey can be made. A well-used minimum suffices for everything. But in order not to exceed it, you must jump mathematically from the trains upon the steamers, and from the steamers upon the trains again. I will jump mathematically. You're joking. A true Englishman doesn't joke when he is talking about so serious a thing as a wager, replied Phileas Fogg solemnly. I will bet 20,000 pounds against anyone who wishes that I will make the tour of the world in 80 days or less, in 1920 hours, or 115,200 minutes. Do you accept? We accept, replied Messer Stuart? No. That's all chewed up here. We accept, replied Masser. Stuart, Valentine, Sullivan, Flanagan, and Ralph, after consulting each other. Good, said Mr. Fogg. The train leaves for Dover at 9:15. I will take it. This very evening? Asked Stuart. This very evening, returned Phileas Fogg. He took out and consulted a pocket almanac and added, "As today is Wednesday, the 2nd of October, I shall be due in London at this very room of the Reform Club on Saturday, the 21st of December, at a quarter before 9 p.m. Or else the £20,000 now deposited in my name at Barings will belong to you. In fact, and in right, gentlemen, here is a check for the amount." A memorandum of the wager was at once drawn up and signed by the 6 parties, during which Phileas Fogg preserved a stoical composure. He certainly did not bet to win, and had only staked £20,000, half his fortune, because he foresaw that he might have to expend the other half to carry out this difficult, not to say unattainable project. As for his antagonists, they seemed much agitated, not so much by the value of their stake as because they had some scruples about betting under conditions so difficult to their friend. The clock struck 7, and the party offered to suspend the game so that Mr. Fogg might make his preparations for departure. "I am quite ready now," was his tranquil response. "Diamonds are trumps. Be so good as to play, gentlemen." That's the end of the chapter. Let's just take a peeky book here. Peeky book. We'll take a peeky boo at this drive, and then we'll get back to the book. Oh yeah, we closing in on the big Flagstaff town. Yeah, we started this thing out there, and we was already up on the last push, so we at 7,000 feet or so. And it's beautiful, beautiful area if you can handle that I-17. It just seems like every time I turn on the television, there's a problem on the I-17. All right. Chapter 4, in which Phileas Fogg astounds Passepartout, his servant. Oh yeah, poor Passepartout. He just got a job. He thought he's going to find just this regular old deal and just have no excitement in his life. It's all that has gone past him. Having won 20 guineas at whist and taken leave of his friends, Phileas Fogg, at 7:25, left the Reform Club. Passepartout, who had conscientiously studied the program of his duties, was more than surprised to see his master guilty of the inexactness of appearing at this unaccustomed hour, for, according to the rule, he was not due in Savile Row until precisely midnight. Mr. Fogg repaired to his bedroom and called out, "Passepartout!" Passepartout did not reply. It could not be he who was called. It was not the right hour. "Passepartout!" repeated Mr. Fogg without raising his voice. Passepartout made his appearance. "I've called you twice," observed his master. "But it is not midnight," responded the other, showing his watch. "I know it. I don't blame you. We start for Dover and Calais in 10 minutes. A puzzled grin overspread Passepartout's round face. Clearly, he had not comprehended his master. "Monsieur is going to leave home?" "Yes," returned Phileas Fogg. "We are going around the world." Passepartout opened his eyes wide, raised his eyebrows, held up his head, and seemed about to collapse. So overcome was he with stupefied astonishment. "Around the world?" "In 80 days, responded Mr. Fogg. "So we haven't a moment to lose." "But the trunks," gasped Passepartout, unconsciously swaying his head from left to right, right to left. "We'll have no trunks, only a carpet bag with 2 shirts and 3 pairs of stockings for me, and the same for you. We'll buy our clothes along the way. Bring down my Mickenstock and traveling cloak, and some stout shoes, though we shall do little walking. Make haste." Passepartout tried to reply, but could not. He went out, mounted to his own room, fell into a chair, and muttered, "That's good. That is. And I who wanted to remain quiet." He mechanically set about making the preparations for departure. Around the world in 80 days. Was his master a fool? No. Was this a joke then? They were going to Dover. Good. To Calais. Good. Again. After all, Passepartout, who had been away from France 5 years, would not be sorry to set foot on his native soil again. Perhaps they would go as far as Paris, and he would do his eyes good to see Paris once more. But surely a gentleman so chary of his steps would not stop there. No doubt. But then it was none the less true that he was going away. So this domestic person thereto. By 8 o'clock, Passepartout had packed the modest carpet-bag containing the wardrobes of his master and himself. Then, still troubled in mind, he carefully shut the door of his room and descended to Mr. Fogg. Mr. Fogg was quite ready. Under his arm might have been observed a red-bound copy of Bradshaw's Continental Railway, Steam, Transit, and General Guide, with its timetable showing the arrival and departure of steamers and railways. He took the carpet-bag, opened it, and slipped into it a goody roll of Bank of England notes, which would pass wherever he might go. "You have forgotten nothing?" he asked. "Nothing, monsieur." "My mackintosh and cloak?" "Here they are." "Good. Take this carpet-bag," handing it to Passepartout. "Take good care of it, for there are 20,000 pounds in it." Passepartout nearly dropped the bag, as if the 20,000 pounds were in gold and weighed him down. Master and man descended. The street door was double locked, and at the end of Savile Row they took a cab and drove rapidly to Charing Cross. The cab stopped before the railway station at 20 minutes past 8. Passepartout jumped off the box and followed his master, who, after paying the cabman, was about to enter the station when a poor beggar woman with a child in her arms asked, with a child in her arms, her naked feet smeared with mud, her head covered with a wretched bonnet from which hung a tattered feather, and her shoulders shrouded in a ragged shawl, approached and mournfully asked for alms. Mr. Fogg took out the 20 guineas he had just won at whist and handed them to the beggar, saying, "Here, my good woman, I am glad that I met you," and passed on. Passepartout had a moist sensation about his eyes. His master's actions touched his susceptible heart. 2 first-class tickets for Paris having been speedily purchased, Mr. Fogg was crossing the station to the train when he perceived his 5 friends of the Reform. "Well, gentlemen," said he, "I'm off, you see, and if you will examine my passport when I get back, you will be able to judge whether I have accomplished the journey agreed upon." "Oh, that would be quite unnecessary, Mr. Fogg," said Ralph politely. "We will trust your word as a gentleman." "You do not forget when you are due in London again?" asked Stewart. "In 80 days, on Saturday, the 21st of December, 1872, at 9:15 p.m. Goodbye, gentlemen." Phileas Fogg and his servant seated themselves in a first-class carriage at 20 minutes before 9. 5 minutes later, the whistle screamed, and the train slowly glided out of the station. Let's take a peek at this drive, shall we?
Still heading up the. Oh, okay, yeah. I'm not even going to say where I think I'm at because I'll have to put on my glasses and look and all of that. So we just we driving. We know that much.
Okay. Glided out of the station. The night was dark and a fine, steady rain was falling. Phileas Fogg, snugly ensconced in his corner, did not open his lips. Passepartout, not yet recovered from his stupefaction, clung mechanically to the carpetbag with its enormous treasure. Just as the train was whirling through Sydenham, Passepartout suddenly uttered a cry of despair. "What's the matter?" asked Mr. Fogg. "Alas, in my hurry I forgot what? To turn off the gas in my room." "Very well, young man," returned Mr. Fogg coolly. "It will burn at your expense." He's going to charge him for the gas. That's the end of the chapter. All right, let's take a look at this drive. I'll put on my glasses and we can try to figure it out where we's at. Oh, I think we just getting in there, aren't we? Yeah, we just barely getting in there. That don't seem right, though, does it? No, that's not right. Of course it's right. It's right until I don't know better, and then it's wrong. No, I know what we're doing. We taking the little detour because the off ramp to the 40 West was being worked on. So they run us over here for a bit and then turn around and run us back again. So while we're doing that, let's take a look at Chapter 5, in which a new species of funds unknown to the moneyed men appears on change. In which a new species of funds unknown to the moneyed men appears on change. All right. I guess we will find out what this is all about here. Phileas Fogg rightly suspected that his departure from London would create a lively sensation at the West End. The news of the bet spread through the Reform Club and afforded an exciting topic of conversation to its members. From the club, it soon got into the papers throughout England. The boasted tour of the world was talked about, disputed, argued with as much warmth as if the subject were another Alabama claim. Some took sides with Phileas Fogg, but the large majority shook their heads and declared against him. It was absurd, impossible, they declared, that the tour of the world could be made, except theoretically and on paper, in this minimum of time, and with the existing means of traveling. The Times, Standard, Morning Post, and Daily News, and 20 other highly respectable newspapers scouted Mr. Fogg's project as madness. The Daily Telegraph alone hesitantly supported him. People in general thought him a lunatic and blamed his Reform Club friends for having accepted a wager which betrayed the mental aberration of its prosperer. Articles no less passionate than logical appeared on the question, for geography is one of the pet subjects of the English, and the columns devoted to Phileas Fogg's venture were eagerly devoured by all classes of readers. At first, some rash individuals, principally of the gentler sex, exposed his cows, which became still more popular when the Illustrated London News came out with his portrait, copied from a photograph in the Reform Club. A few readers of the Daily Telegraph even dared to say, "Why not, after all? Stranger things have come to pass." What are we, sitting in traffic? Oh, trying to get back on that to go the other direction. Yeah. So, yeah, that's something that, you know what, a lady was telling me one time that they missed their exit on the
on the interstate, and I had to go. Well, it was 20 miles or so before the next one because they were out here in the west, and and I never really thought about it. And she says, well, this thing only gets 6 miles to the gallon, 5 miles to the gallon, so 20 miles that way, 20 miles back, so there's 40 miles. And then she went on and on about how much it costs just to make that little mistake of missing the exit. And it kind of threw off their whole day because it was a good chunk of their mileage capacity was used up trying to get through the mistake, because they ended up in a construction situation, and then what was supposed to be just a little mistake and get to the next exit ended up being 4 hours worth of driving. And so be prepared. RVing, moving these things around can be stressful, and take it as it comes. Try to keep them plans, what do they say, written in sand or something like that rather than stone. All right. Why not? After all, stranger things have come to pass. At last, a long article appeared on the 7th of October in the Bulletin of the Royal Geographical Society, which treated the question from every point of view and demonstrated the utter folly of the enterprise. Everything it said was against the travelers. Every obstacle imposed alike by man and nature. A miraculous agreement of the times of departure and arrival, which was impossible, was absolutely necessary to his success. He might perhaps reckon on the arrival of trains at the designated hours in Europe, where the distances were relatively moderate, but when he calculated upon crossing India in 3 days, and the United States in 7, could he rely beyond misgiving upon accomplishing this task? There were accidents to machinery, the liability of trains to run off the line, collisions, bad weather, the blocking up of snow. Were not all these against Phileas Fogg? Would he not find himself, when traveling by steamer in winter, at the mercy of the winds and fogs? Is it uncommon for the best ocean steamers to be 2 or 3 days behind time? But a single delay would suffice to fatally break the chain of communication. Should Phileas Fogg once miss, even by an hour, a steamer, he would have to wait for the next, and that would irrevocably render his attempt vain. This article made a great deal of noise, and, being copied into all the papers, seriously depressed the advocates of the rash tourist. Everybody knows that England is the world of betting men, who are of a higher class than mere gamblers. Ooh, well, let's just leave it right there. Thanks so much for coming along, Sam C. And we'll just leave you a little bit of the big old Rosie. Yeah, it kind of caught me by surprise there, but yeah, okay, we'll just leave it there, and we'll let Rosie do her thing, and we'll pick it up again later. We got a long ways to go. Don't worry, there's more.